Pastor Jared here with another book review. This one is Divorce and Remarriage, Four Christian Views. As I've said before in the past, I love these different Christian view books. It's a great place to go to help develop your own uh, theological convictions on certain issues because it exposes you to different views on particular theological issues. It allows you to be able to be more informed about what do you believe and what do other people believe on it, and to give you the different biblical arguments for why they hold what they hold. This book I read for one of my seminary classes, and I'm so grateful that they did. And it really deals with the topic: is divorce? Should people divorce? Shouldn't people not get divorced? Should people get remarried? Should we not get remarried? Is it a sin? Is it not a sin? What does the Bible say about divorce and remarriage? Now, it is by um, edited by H. Wayne House, and he is a scholar and been involved in many different books and professorships and stuff. And he went to Western Seminary at one point in his life, so that's always a point of excitement for myself. He edited the book, so he's not writing anything in the book. He is just an editor, and so he got the four contributors to come together to explain their view on divorce and remarriage, and he just compiled a book and brought the go-to between people. The other thing I should mention with this, and this is where he would have played in a lot, is first, all four authors write their theological views or theological convictions, and then they share their view, and they would probably write to the editor. They would hand to the editor, and the editor would share their views with the other authors, and the other authors push back on those particular viewpoints. It's again one of the things I appreciate is because you're hearing the one particular view and then the pushbacks on those views, and you can determine where these are good pushbacks or not. So this is the editor. That's the role he plays in the whole thing, is sharing the different views between the different authors, compiling into one book. So he did an excellent job. The one of the things I will also say that I appreciate with the way he edits a book, and this is a way I like most books of this nature that gives four views, is I always like going from the most conservative evangelical viewpoint to the less conservative view, and or less traditional view. We could also say that, and so it gives us this nice spectrum. I like going from one spectrum all the way through the grays to the other spectrum. The other thing that we'll see as I go through this book or talk about this book is it is a spectrum of one view to another view, and also shows you that theological views can have a spectrum of view, that there isn't just one view on a topic. So let's look at it. And so the first author and contributor is J. Carl Laney. He is a professor at Western Seminary. I took a lot of his Bible classes, survey Bible classes. So for me, it's really neat to read something from him. He actually already wrote a book about divorce myth, and it's been around for a while. But there's part of the reason why they had him contribute to it. He's actually written about this thoroughly. Now, Carl Laney, uh, he he takes the position of a that biblically speaking, that there should be no divorce and no remarriage. This is probably the most conservative, traditional view that God did not want us to have remarriage and does not want remarriage. Um, and so that's where he stands on the topic. Um, Carl argues that the Bible intended for marriage to be permanent, and there is never a need for divorce, and remarriage after divorce is never permissible. This is his perspective, and he does a really good job presenting that case. The next contributor is William Heath, and unfortunately, the besides the editor and Carl Laney, those are the only ones I could find pictures of. I would love to have a picture for each author. Unfortunately, not. But this is the book that he wrote on Jesus and divorce. Now, William Heath holds to a divorce okay, but no remarriage. So he agrees that he says there are circumstances where divorce is okay, but that remarriage is the exception, that you're not supposed to do that. And here's the book that he wrote on it. More specifically, it says, contends that there are legitimate biblical grounds for divorce, but not for remarriage. And again, he does a brilliant job making his case for that. The next one, and unfortunately, he hasn't. Thomas Edgar, unfortunately, has not written a book on this particular topic. Nor do I have a picture of him, but I do have a picture of one of the books that he has written. As you can probably guess just from the title of this book, because he does have a Pentecostal background. And his view is divorce, yes, and remarriage for adultery or desertion only. And that's where he stands on the topic. Now, specifically, he defends the position that Scripture allows for divorce and remarriage in case of adultery or desertion. And so they deal with this particular topic, and he gives his arguments. And again, uh, just like all, they all give excellent biblical arguments. The last one is Larry Richard, Remarriage, a Healing Gift for God. This is a book that he wrote, and it's nice that three of them all have written on it, and even the previous author, Thomas Edgar, he has written on it, which is why they do it, but he just doesn't have a book out on it. Uh, and he holds that Larry Richards holds to divorce, yes, and remarriage under a variety of circumstances. So he's probably the most open of the group. He holds that the Bible uh, decries divorce and the pain it causes, but nevertheless points to God of grace, who will not condemn those who divorce and remarry. And so this is where Larry Richards holds his view. All four views are very excellent. All four views gives a really good argument for why their view is correct, other views are incorrect. They do a good job pushing back on each other. So this is really good book on the topic. Um, I think if people ask where do you stand on divorce and remarriage, I to one to half, and because Carly did such a part of me has said, gosh, he made a real good argument. He really does make good argument. And what I say is divorce and remarriage is there's sin there. That you should not get divorced. And God did not want remarriage. However, barring someone from last author, I think there's also grace. And I also think there's forgiveness. And I think there are three grounds for divorce myself. I believe that um, a affair is a reason for divorce. I think that they've been unfaithful to you, divorce is okay. I agree with Paul that a spouse that has abandoned you is a reason for divorce. And a third one, and me and another pastor might have talked about, is abuse. And that's another form of unfaithfulness, of some would say abandonment, of someone who's breaking their covenant with that person. And I really believe in not just any abuse, but really physical abuse and really psychological abuse. I think there is an area where that would feel that. And I believe that there's mercy and grace on this. And then this is where I think the last contributor does have a good argument of saying that there's still an amount of grace and forgiveness, and I think that's where it is that uh, God hates divorce. He does, and divorce is a sin, right? And and I think there are circumstances that people it is not something that should be taken lightly or should ever be done half-heartedly. I mean, you really need to think through because God did design marriage a marriage for permanent. It was a covenant marriage. And for most of us, it is a marriage, it's a covenant we made not only with our spouse, but with God. A lot of people don't understand that when they do the marriage vow, they're not making only the marriage vow to each other, but also to God. And so, therefore, that's why it's a serious sin because not only you're breaking your covenant with your spouse, but you're also breaking a covenant with God. And so you're breaking your word. And so there is an essence of sin there. And it's wrong. And God did not design does not want us to get divorced and remarried all the time. And unfortunately, and that's the one the biggest concern is once you open the door for divorce and remarriage, that it really has opened up the floodgates where we see in the secular world people divorcing and remarrying all the time, and now it's impacted the Christian world. And so I do say yes, there's situations where divorce is okay and that there's forgiveness and grace and mercy in that, and there's times for remarriage, so remarriage is being okay, and there's mercy, grace, and forgiveness there, and I understand that. Um, but also we gotta take to say that this is serious stuff, and none of these things should be done lightly. And one of the things I would say that a person who is going through these is even considering these things, they really need to talk to their pastor. They really need to talk to a good Christian counselor because these things need to be well thought of and thought of the implications, and especially if there's children involved, this really needs to be thought out. And there really are circumstances, I will say, that if a wife is dealing with abuse, especially physical abuse and severe psychological abuse, or her children are experiencing abuse or then yes, they need to get free from that type of environment. And so that is where I stand at, and part of how I kind of came to this decision is because of this book, and that's the beauty of reading a book like this is it can help you to create these theological convictions over this topic. And so we should talk about these. We need to consider all the implications of them. And this book, A Divorce and Remarriage for Christian Views, is an excellent book. And if you don't have it, I would suggest it, especially for pastors. I would encourage you to have it, to real consider it. A lot of us we have our convictions over it, but we've never thought through it. And especially a lot of us, we just believe whatever we've been taught, but we've never really wrestled with the different perspectives. And this is what these books are great for. Wrestle it, come to a conviction, and make sure it's a biblical conviction. Don't be just because Pastor so and so says this, but biblically, this is why I believe it. And so I really encourage you to read this book and come to your convictions about it. And even for those who are considering divorce or know someone's considering divorce, I mean, this is a book that maybe they need to read and consider themselves and before they make that decision. Um, but here's a great book. I hope it will be a blessing to you. Have a great day, and God bless.